Hello everyone, I'm Swagat. I'm studying MC at Maharaja Institute of Technology, Mysore. Today I'm gonna explain about the seminar topic is instance pooling and caching in advanced Java programming. First one is what is instance pooling? Instance pooling allows EJB server to maintain cache and component instances and bind them to client session on as need basis. Instance pooling eliminates execution time and memory consumption that would otherwise be spent allocating unnecessary component instances. Then some of the implicit pooling of EJB components, then entity beans and stateless session bean can be implicitly pooled after any method invocation. EJB server calls the active and passive method to indicate when the instance has been bound to the client session. Stateless session bean remain bound to a client session as long as server not crashed. The client has not called, removed, unbind from the instance, or the bean session timeout value has not expired. The EJB server may serialize the instance and save it to the disk conserve memory. EJB server calls passivate method before serializing the bean and activate method calls the bean has been deserialized. Then passivate method before calling the serialization and activate method also called deserialized. In the code for this method, you must realize and reacquire any object references that do not support serialization. What is caching? Caching is the process of storing the data in a cache. Cache, it means storing the data in a memory. A cache is a temporary storage area. When you return a page you have recently looked at, the browser can get those files from cache rather than original server, saving you time and saving the network and burden additional traffic. Caching is a temporary storage area, then it would store the data in the memory, then it would saving your time and network and burden additional traffic like that. What are the caching techniques? There are some techniques are there. The first one is populating the cache. In populating cache, the major three parts, then upfront population, lazy evaluation. Then first one is upfront population. This means that you populate the cache with all needed values when the system keeping the cache is starting up. Then being able to do so requires that you know what data populate the cache with. You may not always know what data should be inserted into the cache in system startup. In lazy evaluation, this means that you populate the cache in first time certain piece of data is needed. You can start the cache in the first time, then some amount of data should be needed in this lazy evaluation. The first you can check the caches, you see data is already there. If you're not ready for the data from the remote system and insert it into the cache. The second type is keeping cache and remote system in sync. A big challenge of caching is to keep the data stored in the cache and data stored in remote system sync. This means the data is same. We can storing the data in cache and we can storing always in the remote system. This means data is as the same in two methods. Then depending on how your system structured, then different ways of keeping data to be sync. The third one is managing cache size. Managing cache size is an important aspect of caching too. This is the important method. Then many system has so much data stored in the impossible and unfeasible to store all that data in the cache. Therefore, you need to mechanism to manage how much data you stored in the cache. Then how much data stored in the cache, it is one of the managing in cache size. Managing the cache size is typically done by evicting data from the cache to make space for a new data. The fourth one is caching in server clusters. Caching is simpler in a system that runs on the single server. Then it is simpler and it runs on the single server. With a single server you can assume that writes through the same server and then use to write the cache. The situation of more complicated when your application is distributed across the cluster of servers. Then it will distribute it across the cluster of the servers. Then finally the cache products. It will implementing your own cache is too hard depending on how advanced you need to be. Then however you are not the mode of implement your own cache, there exist many different ready to use the caching products. Thank you for everyone.